What a married man really wants from you and never says. Carl Jung. Have you ever noticed that look? It is not the look of obvious desire, but something different, deeper. I see this happen constantly. Married men who approach certain women with an intensity that doesn't make sense at first glance. They are not flirting openly, they are not being inconvenient. But there is a need there, something urgent and inexplicable that even they themselves cannot name. Carl Jung revealed a disturbing truth. When a married man approaches you in this way, he's not necessarily pursuing an affair. He is seeking lost pieces of his own soul, parts of himself that have been buried under the weight of marriage, of responsibility, of the social persona he has built. And the scariest thing, he is not aware of it. He operates driven by unconscious forces so powerful that they can blow up his life without him even understanding the real reason. What really moves a married man when he approaches? The answer will completely change how you see these situations. 1. The shadow he hides from his own wife. There is a part of the married man who never crosses the door of the house. Jung called this the shadow, and it is precisely everything he learned to repress to maintain the peace of the home. When he says yes at the family dinner while thinking no, when he controls his anger in the face of demands, when he swallows his frustration so as not to create conflict, he is pushing whole pieces of himself into the basement of the psyche. And that basement doesn't go away. It ferments, gains strength, waits for a breach. You become that breach without doing anything at all. In your presence, he feels that he can be slightly more honest, more raw, more real. You don't have to measure every word as if you were diffusing a bomb. The tension of constant self-control relaxes a little. That's why conversations with you flow differently, have a quality of truth that he forgot existed. His wife knows the edited version, the social persona he wears every day. She sees the responsible man, the provider, the husband who does the right thing even when he doesn't want to. But the anger he swallowed when he was contradicted for the 10th time that week, the sexual frustration he never verbalized, the desire to send everything to hell and start over from scratch in another country, that remains locked away. This energy does not disappear, it leaks, it moves, it looks for a channel of expression. When he interacts with you, he's not necessarily planning a betrayal. It's relieving the internal pressure of carrying a mask that's too heavy for too long. You represent the possibility of him showing his teeth without being judged as a monster, of expressing disagreement without it threatening the entire family structure. It is a psychological outlet. The real danger is not sexual, it's emotional. He begins to associate his presence with inner freedom, with the feeling of finally taking a deep breath after years of holding his breath. And the more he experiences this with you, the more life at home feels like a suffocating prison. The shadow that should be integrated into marriage finds expression on the outside, and that changes everything. 2. The mirror that you represent without realizing it. Something strange happens when a married man talks to you. He sees himself differently, not literally, but in the way you react to him, in the things you notice, in the way your eyes shine when he tells a certain story. You're reflecting back an image of him that he forgot existed, and this reflex is addictive. Jung understood that we don't see people as they really are. We see projections, reflections, distorted by our own needs and perceptions. When his wife looks at him, she sees bills to pay, unfulfilled commitments, the man who forgot to pick up the children from school. Her gaze carries years of routine, expectations, small accumulated disappointments. It's not evil. It is the raw reality of marriage. You don't carry that weight. When you look at it, you see what it shows in the present moment. If he makes a clever joke, you genuinely laugh, without the filter of, "you always make these stupid jokes." If he shares a business idea, you respond enthusiastically without the mental background of, "You've tried 1,000 things and never finish anything." His gaze is clean. It is not marked by the disappointment of time. This clean mirror gives him back a version of himself that he believed he had lost forever. The interesting man, the guy with good ideas, the one that still has value beyond being just a surname on birth certificates. He doesn't realize that it's just the absence of negative context. He interprets it as if you see something special in him that his wife is unable to see. The psychological truth here is brutal. He's not falling in love with you. It's falling in love with the version of himself that you reflect back. It's narcissism disguised as connection, but to him, it seems like destiny, inexplicable chemistry, something bigger. And the more he seeks that reflection, the further he moves away from doing the real work of rebuilding his self-image within the marriage. If you want to understand what a married man truly wants from you, and why he hides these desires behind mixed signals and emotional confusion, the Jung method is fixed in the first comment. 3. The rejected anima that he projects onto you. Within every man, there is an inner female figure that Jung called the anima. It's not about sexual orientation. It's about the ability to feel deeply, to connect emotionally, to access intuition and sensitivity. During years of social conditioning, he learned that men don't cry, don't open up, don't show fragility. The anima was being suffocated until it almost disappeared. In marriage, this repression intensifies. He needs to be strong for the family, solve problems, keep the structure working. Showing fear or insecurity can shake the confidence of the wife, worry the children, show weakness when everyone depends on him. Then he buries this sensitive part of himself even deeper, but it does not die. It stands down there, waiting, yearning for expression. When you show up, something inside it recognizes an opportunity. In your presence, he feels he can let his guard down in ways he can't at home. You can admit that you are confused about life, that you have fears, that you do not know all the answers. You won't fall apart if he shows vulnerability because you don't depend on him for anything. There is no family structure at risk. What he doesn't realize is that he's projecting his own anima onto you. He sees in you the emotional and intuitive qualities that he has rejected in himself. The sensitivity you demonstrate, the way you connect emotionally, the freedom with which you express feelings, all of this is a mirror of what he has killed inside him. And he interprets this projection as an irresistible attraction, as if you were the only person capable of understanding him. The tragedy is that he seeks outside what he should integrate inside. Instead of doing the work of regaining your own sensitivity, of learning to be vulnerable in marriage, he outsources it to you. You become the repository of all the emotional life that he can't live at home. And this creates a dangerous dependency because he starts to need you to feel whole, to access parts of himself that should be available all the time. 4. The impossible freedom that you symbolize. You represent something he lost the moment he signed the marriage certificate, the sense of endless possibilities. Before the commitment, life was an open field where any path was available. Then the doors were closed one by one, not just the doors of relationships with other women, but the doors of who he could have been, of the dreams he had to abandon, of the alternate versions of his own life. When he looks at you, he doesn't just see an attractive or interesting woman. He sees the road, not traveled. He sees his version that he could have traveled the world instead of buying a house. The man who could have risked everything in a business instead of accepting the secure job to support his family. The life I could have lived if I hadn't chosen stability over adventure. You're not stuck. Their choices still seem open. Their future still seems malleable. He projects into this freedom a fantasy of rescue, as if being close to you could give him back some of that feeling of life that is not fully defined. That's why conversations about your plans, your doubts, your possibilities make you so energized. He is living vicariously through his freedom. Marriage, by nature, is a golden prison. No matter how good it is, it always involves giving up alternatives. Each wedding anniversary is a reminder of the paths not taken, the lives not lived, and that weighs. Over time, this feeling of being trapped intensifies. Responsibilities increase, options decrease, life narrows until it fits only in the home commute. You become the escape fantasy without him having to actually run away. He can get a taste of freedom just by being around you, hearing about your life, imagining possibilities. You don't have to destroy your marriage to access that feeling. You are the open window in a room that has been closed for years. And the more he breathes this air of freedom, the more suffocating life at home becomes. 5. The recognition that is lacking at home. There is a silent hunger that eats away at married men inside. The hunger to be seen. Not only noticed, but really seen as someone who matters beyond the functions they perform. Inside the house, he became invisible in a peculiar way. Everyone sees what he does, but no one else sees who he is. He is the provider who needs to bring money, the father who needs to set an example, the husband who needs to fix the faucet. But the man behind these functions has disappeared. When was the last time someone at home asked him what he really thinks about his life? Not about the bills, not about the vacation plans, but about your fears, your doubts, your dreams that still pulsate softly in some forgotten corner of the soul. The wife is too busy managing the house and her own frustrations. The children see it as part of the furniture, always there, always available, never really interesting. You break that pattern simply by paying attention. When he speaks, you really hear it. You're not mentally making a shopping list or thinking about the next task. You ask questions that show genuine interest. You remember details he mentioned weeks ago. That kind of attention has become so rare in his life that it feels like pure oxygen after years of breathing thin air. The recognition you offer doesn't have to be grandiose. It could be a comment on how well he handled a difficult situation at work. It may be noticing that he looks tired and asking if everything is okay. It may just be the look that says, "I see you, you exist, you matter." Those crumbs of validation become a feast when you're starving. Human beings need witnesses for their existence. It is not enough to live. We need someone to see that we are alive. In marriage, after years, this witness function dies. Spouses become blind to each other, stuck in routines, seeing only surfaces. It may be crumbling inside and no one notices because everyone is too busy with their own survival. When you recognize him, when his words or look say, "I see you," something within him awakens. It's not passion, it's relief. The deep relief of finally existing again as a complete human being, not just as a walking function. And this relief can be more addictive than any drug because it touches the most basic need of the human soul, to be seen, to be known, to matter. 6. The fantasy of being who he can no longer be. There was a time when he was someone else. He had ardent ambitions, the courage to take risks, the energy to pursue the impossible. He looked to the future and saw glory, adventure, epic achievements. Then came the responsibilities, the bills, the commitments, and that man was replaced by a smaller, safer, more controlled version. Practical life killed the dreamer. In your presence, he feels that he can resurrect that dead man. You can talk about the crazy plans you still secretly carry, the ideas you never had the courage to execute, the version of yourself you still believe is possible. You don't interrupt it with practical concerns about money, security, responsibilities. You don't carry the weight of depending on him, so you can listen to him fantasize without fear. At home, any talk about moving becomes a source of tension. If he mentions quitting his job to try something new, he sees the panic in his wife's eyes. Whether he talks about traveling, moving to another city, starting over, practical concerns flood the conversation until any spark of enthusiasm is drowned. The whole family depends on the stable version of him, so the wild version needs to be locked up. With you, he can be the adventurer again, at least in words. He can tell about the book he always wanted to write, the business he is still thinking about opening, the radical change he fantasizes about making at the age of 50. You represent the audience for the heroic version of yourself that he hides in the basement of his soul. And just being able to talk about it, just seeing you react with interest instead of concern, he feels alive again. The fantasy is not about you specifically. It's about who he gets to be when he's with you. You are the stage where he can play the role of the man he could have been, the courageous entrepreneur, the misunderstood artist, the rebel who did not completely sell himself to the system. Every conversation with you is a rehearsal for an alternate life that he will never live. The danger here is twofold. First, the more he lives this fantasy with you, the more unbearable it becomes to return to reality at home. Second, it begins to confuse the sense of creative freedom you arouse with romantic feelings. You can't separate the relief of being able to dream again from the idea that you're the right woman for him. The line between "she lets me be myself" and "she's my soulmate" dissolves completely. 7. The male validation that marriage erased. There's something men rarely admit out loud. They need to feel desirable. Not only loved comfortably and safely, but desired with that raw intensity of the beginning, when every encounter was urgent and every touch was discovered. Marriage kills that slowly. Desire becomes routine, passion becomes partnership, and it goes from an object of desire to an object of utility. The wife loves him, but not in the way that feeds the male ego. She loves him as one loves a comfortable home, a reliable car, a stable bank account. It's true love, but it's domestic love. There is no longer that twinkle in his eyes when he enters the room. There is no longer the exciting anxiety of wanting to be close to him. She knows that he is there, that he will continue to be there, so the desire withers and becomes certainty. When you show interest in him, even if it's just polite attention, something inside him wakes up violently. Someone still sees him as a man, not just a husband or father. Their eyes do not carry the familiar boredom of someone who already knows every gesture, every phrase, every pattern. For you, it still has mystery. It can still surprise. It can still be interesting. This validation reaches an especially vulnerable point after the age of 40. He looks in the mirror and sees his hair thinning, his belly growing, his wrinkles deepening. At home, no one comments on this because everyone ages together, but he notices. He feels time passing, youth escaping, the window of being desirable closing, and then you show up and demonstrate that it still has value in the market, so to speak. It doesn't matter if you're just being nice. It doesn't matter if it's just professional cordiality. He's so hungry for this kind of validation that any crumb feels like a feast. A genuine smile, a casual compliment, non-obligatory attention. All of this feeds the hunger to be seen as sexually relevant again, as someone who still arouses interest, not just marital obligation. Marriage should be the place where this kind of validation happens over and over again. But the reality is that routine kills desire, familiarity kills mystery, and security kills urgency. He knows his wife will be there tomorrow, so there's nothing left to conquer. With you, there is the thrill of uncertainty. You can leave at any time. There are no guarantees. And that makes every interaction seem precious, every show of interest seem meaningful. 8. The awakening he fears and desires at the same time. There is a dangerous moment in the life of every married man when he realizes that he has been asleep for years, that your life has become an automatic loop of waking up, working, coming back, sleeping, repeating. that he hasn't felt anything deeply for so long that he's forgotten what it's like to feel. And you, doing absolutely nothing but existing in his orbit, become the alarm that threatens to wake him up from this anesthesia. He feels something when he's around you, not necessarily love or sexual desire, but something, anxiety, excitement, fear, vitality, anything other than the chronic numbness that has become your reality. It's as if someone had turned on the lights in a room that had been in the dark for decades. The eyes hurt, everything seems too intense, but at the same time there is relief in being able to see again. This awakening terrifies him because it is accompanied by impossible questions. If he can feel so much intensity with you, what does that say about marriage? If life can suddenly seem so vibrant, does it mean that you've spent years living in shades of grey? And the most dangerous question of all, if he's just starting to wake up now, how much real life